Alrighty guys, what's up? Um, so I'm just gonna rant about Path to Exile again, 'cause I like that game, you know? 'Cause that's what everybody wants to see meatheads talk about, nerdy ass games. So look, I think they put a tweet out, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't read it, but I've heard they put a tweet out saying like kinda like, hey, we're gonna do some bug fixing this week and you guys will kinda see maybe a more meaty patch next week with like actual changes to the game. I mean, it is early access. I'm just gonna kind of talk about like how I hope things like move forward, I guess. I know right now a lot of people are like, oh, like, armor sucks and like nerf energy shield. Honestly, like if you're sitting there like hoping for nerfs or like nerf this, nerf that, like whatever, like bro, you're in the wrong mindset right now, bro. Like you should not be worried about them like nerfing something. Like I mean, they should definitely be buffing things, I think. Like I think armor probably definitely needs a buff. Like maybe life builds need like a buff, right? And then I think once those are buffed and you see how like once armor and life is like functional, then you see how they compete against energy shield, then maybe you nerf energy shield. But if you nerf energy shield and then just buff armor and life, then you're just gonna like flip the problem. So without really any just out any data when the two are like even remotely comparable. So I don't think you should nerf energy shield until you've buffed armor and life and see how they compete against each other. But moving on, like I think the other thing they need to focus on too is just kind of like making the end game like way more fun. Cause like right now the end game's like all right, but like like it takes forever. It takes way too long to find the frickin' what are those called? What's it called? It takes way too long to find the citadels, like with the little mini bosses in them, so you can fight the Ash God or whatever the hell that motherfucker's called, like the dude with like the fire and shit. I play mapping builds, so I just find this shit and then pay some dude to like kill the boss so I can get my points. And that brings me to another point. The points take way too long to get. Like, okay, for starters, like the way you earn like the mapping points from like completing tier ones and like tier twos and like so on is like whack. Like you have to complete 10 tier ones to get your first couple points. Why? It should be like 3 tier 1s to get your first couple points. Like the thing that made mapping so much fun in Path of Exile when you at least got to maps initially was that every map you were completing typically was giving you another like progress point on your Atlas skill tree. So like, you know, you're slowly just making your Atlas experience better and better. Whereas in like PoE 2, it takes so long to get the next couple points, and it just feels like a slog to like make things slightly better. Especially in early mapping when you have nothing, you have to do 10 maps before you even get like 6% rarity. Like, bro, come on, man, that's lame as hell. Like, it should be like 3 tier 1s, 4 tier 2s, and you should have to do more and more as you get up into higher tiers, because that actually makes people like not cheese, right? Because like if I only have to do 6 tier 15s, then like it's like I don't have to spend as much time in tier 15s, and I have to spend more time in lower tiers. And honestly, like it doesn't make much sense to have a player spend a ton of time in tier ones when you're finishing the story, because like honestly, like you should be clapping like tiers 1 through 5 on maps easy if you can beat the campaign on your own. Like easy, like those should be you should blow through those really quick. They shouldn't. You should like never run those again. Like you should blow through them and then just move on to like you know, if you start to slow down in the lower tiers as if you're a newer player and stuff, I mean, I think that's like normal, right? But like, you should not have to do 10 tier 1 maps. That makes no sense. And like, yeah, you can do tier 2s for the tier 1 progress, but it doesn't make any sense for you to have to do 10 tier 1s. It feels whack. I should have to spend more time in the higher tier of maps to get my points. I shouldn't have to spend a ton of time in the lower tiers. I should be able to get a lot of my points quickly early, and then it should slow down so that I can actually kind of build up a tree. Especially because getting tier 15s in this game, like the sustain is whack as hell. So it's like when you're trying to build up the points, you get into later tiers, your tree's not fleshed out, and so trying to get the maps that you need is whack as fuck too. I was having to buy them until I finally finished my tree completely and was in tier 15s and able to, I had to buy a few tier 15s to get me jump started to actually sustain on my own. And the sustain process is whack too. Like I hate that like really the main way to sustain is to like go and do the map bosses. It just feels weirdly clunky. They should definitely buff the amount of T15s that are dropping. I don't like, especially because here's my problem. You either need to buff the amount of tier 15s that are dropping, so I have more tier 15s, or you need to change the fact to like progress the other mechanics. You need tier 15s. Like to get your breach points, you need to be doing breaches in tier 15s. To get your Simulacrum points, you need to be doing deli mirrors in tier 15s. Like you have to be doing tier 15 plus maps, especially for like the map boss points. You have to do like a tier 16 map, and then you have to do the arbiter. Like bro. Like I don't want to go do Arbiter. I just like the map. Anyway, but like that's besides the point, right? Like yeah, you shouldn't have to do that. Like I should just like if like the tier 15s are like something you want to keep like like kind of gated a bit. Like I should be able to progress to other things like in tier 14s and tier 13s. Because also as I'm getting close to the end of like the little quests, like then I can like start the like side quests essentially, right? Like I can start working on my breach tree in tier 13s. It just like I don't know why it has to be tier 15s to make any kind of progress. Like I mean maybe it's just like I have bad RNG, but I did not see a single breach splinter until tier 15s. And the whack part about the trees too is it takes so long to get your first attempt at the breach boss. It takes way too long. It takes way too long to get breach splinters. It takes way too long to get Simulacrum sprinters. Like I'm still haven't even got any points in the Delhi shit. I have 6 out of 8 points now in the breach tree, but it takes so long to get the first one, and you get that first node that like increases your sprinkler drop by 75%, and then you start to rack them up way more, and then you get like the 40% increased density, and then you're getting them kind of decent now. Like I'm getting like 20 to 30 splinters a map now, which feels pretty good. And I think they should maybe nerf the tree a little bit, but increase the base of like the mechanics by a bit. Because right now, to like level up the mechanics, essentially, it just takes too long and it feels bad. They definitely need to like make the leveling process a little bit faster, but maybe tone down like they can tone down the end part of it, right? Like, because if they buff it a ton into early, and then like the end will probably be crazy, but the beginning part of the end game needs to feel more like consecutive with like the progress you're making. Right now, it feels very stair steppy and like it almost gets like longer and longer, which isn't necessarily bad, but it just gets too long. The steps get too big, and it just does not. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel fun. Like I mean, shit, I've got like 150 hours in the game in less than a month. Which I mean, there are people who have like fucking 500, but I'm just saying like I play a shit ton. Like I enjoy the game, but it's definitely like I would totally make another character if I didn't have to go through like the slog of like another tree. It's just it feels bad. Also, like they're probably going to focus somewhat on the campaign, I think, but realistically, like they want the campaign to be like this kind of longer, like cinematic experience. I think kind of similar to Diablo, and to an extent, I think that's probably makes sense from like a marketing perspective for them, because like a lot of people are going to just buy the game, play the campaign, and don't care about the end game. But I could be wrong here, but I feel like the core Path to Exile audience is probably cares way more about the end game than they do about the campaign. Like if the campaign's ass but the end game's great, like most like true PoE players, like the loyal PoE players, are not gonna care the campaign is ass. Well, they might complain a little bit, but like as long as the end game's good, they're gonna overlook that. As long as it's not like 100 hours long or some garbage. I really just think that like the campaign should really just be like an extended tutorial. Like Act 1 should be focused on teaching you to equip skill gems and teaching you to equip gear and maybe like putting an augment on your gear or some shit like that, right? And then like Act 2 should like start to introduce elemental damage, and they should like be encouraging you through dialogue with the character like the NPCs to like put on elemental resist. And then Act 3 can be, I don't know, encouraging you to like start to equip support gems more with like lessers or so on. I don't know. But like I think the campaign should really just be more of an extended tutorial and like just like slowly introducing you to mechanics, because like they introduce you to some mechanics in the story, but it's like lame as hell. Like they randomly throw ritual in there, and like the ritual just I don't it's like it I don't know. It feels out of place. It feels weird. Yeah, so I don't know. I really hope they don't just come in with like a nerf hammer and nerf a ton of stuff, because I think I would feel bad. Like I said, like if you just nerf energy shield and then buff armor, like everyone's just gonna like switch over, and now it's gonna be like 50% Titans instead of 50% Stormreavers. So you know, I think just like I think maybe like Archmage needs a nerf, because like the damage, but like not the defenses. I think the defenses are kind of fine. I like if someone wants to be really tanky, I think that's okay, and I think that's kind of how the game is almost meant to be played, because it's slower than PoE 1. But like the damage is obviously insane, right, on Archmage. So that maybe probably needs tuned down a bit. But honestly, just buff the other damage. I don't know. Like I do hope the game is slower than PoE 1. Honestly, like I do hope the game slows down compared to PoE 1, because I mean PoE 1 moves at like the speed of light, right? I think that's maybe a little much. I don't want to be like crazy slow, but I think in my ideal world, PoE 2 is a lot slower, but not necessarily like clunky, I guess. Because it almost, on some aspects of the game, it almost feels kind of clunky. I mean, it's early access though, so I guess that's to be expected. But like, I guess like my ideal kind of in-game situation with PoE 2 is that like the characters are obviously slower than PoE 1, but they're like decently tankier and do like a lot more damage. And I don't think you should like I don't think there should really ever be a situation in PoE 2 where you're getting one shot unless like the map has like psycho modifiers on it, or it's like you're failing like a mechanic like Maven memory game. If you fail a mechanic like Maven memory game, okay, cool, you get one shot. Outside of that, you really should never be getting one shot in my opinion. Like dying should be, oh, I got chunked like two, three times in a row because I played poorly. Not like, oh, I fucked up once and was like slightly at the edge of the boss's slam radius and just get turbo nuked, right? That feels bad because like I don't know, like POE want like in POE you're gonna get hit, like that like you're gonna get hit, and there are just certain things that like I don't think should like I think really specifically like either like super slow attacks should one shot you, and like mechanics like Baby Memory game should one shot you. But realistically, I think getting one shot should be a really extremely rare thing, and dying should be more of a consequence of like, oh, like I failed to dodge that, then I failed to dodge that, then I failed to dodge that. Like shit, I died. I think like when fighting a boss in PoE 2, it should kind of feel like you guys are almost like slugging it out. Like you guys can both hit each other for like big chunks, and it's like whoever like I guess the boss can't really fuck up, but like if you like if you fuck if you don't dodge like X amount of times, then you should die. Um, and like maybe like I think maybe sustain would be a little like with its current like with where sustain is currently at, like maybe that would kind of fuck with that, and you could like I think you should have a good amount of sustain in mapping, like because like like you shouldn't. I don't want mapping to be like bossing. I think I should be able to sustain like off a leech in maps, but then maybe put like a modifier on bosses where it's like leech is only 20% like it's 80% less effective on bosses. Like you only leech like 20% of what you would leech from like a normal boss if you're like leeching from a like a you'd only leech like 20% of what you would normally leech from a normal mob on a boss. There we go. My retarded ass finally got the words out. I think I said that right. So essentially, so like in a boss fight, like you can't just like get hit and then like run around a little bit, leech back up to full, and then like kind of cheese it like that. Like you really have a like finite amount of like health, and you really have to make sure you're I'm dodge rolling like most of their shit, and I'm like hitting them back. But like all your hits, I think you should be hitting them less frequently than you probably are now, but all your hits should be hitting for way harder. Like you should be kind of looking for those key moments to come in, hit a swing, do a good chunk of damage, then kind of like dodge roll out of there, get out of an attack, and like do some more damage. But then mapping should be like more fast paced. You should be kind of blowing everything up and like leeching off of it. And then like I don't know, dying and mapping should just be like, oh, your build shit. Like oh, like I don't have enough resist, I don't have enough evasion slash armor. Like dying and mapping should be a result of your build being ass. And I mean obviously that should carry over to like bossing as well. But bossing should be more of a I fucked up and like got hit when I shouldn't have. Like and not getting cheesed by some weird mechanic. I don't know. I think if they would do that too, like the whole like oh only one boss attempt on my first time would be like less obnoxious if the bosses were like way more telegraphed and it was very clear what you needed to do, which I don't think is the case right now. So that's what I want.